Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do a really fun video that's going to be the start of a new series on my channel. I don't know yet what I'm going to call it, but basically I'm going to pull out palettes that I've had for a while that I haven't used a ton. And this is a way to kind of push myself to use my stuff. The palette that inspired this was the Wet n Wild Comfort Zone palette. This is a cult product and people have loved this one for a long time. And the reason why it was one that came to mind is because Wet n Wild recently reformulated these palettes and came out with new ones, and this one was one of the ones that they came out with. They came out with some new ones as well, but basically they kept a lot of these shades and they just added 2 matte transition shades because that's really what this palette was missing. But this is still a fantastic palette, so if you have it, you can use this one. If you get the new one, you can use that one. I just pulled in a separate palette to use to get my transition shades, the matte shades that I needed, because for me, I need those shades. But basically I created 2 separate looks. This is the second one, so I hope you're excited about this. I know that I definitely am. I'm trying to make an effort this year to use a lot more of my stuff that hasn't gotten as much love. If you want to see the 2 looks that I came up with, then just keep on watching. All right, so we're gonna get started. So that's one of the things that they did improve with the newer one, is that they included 2 matte shades that could be used as transition shades or more just crease shades in general. So that is a really nice change that they've made. I can't speak to the formula. I think people have been liking them. I've heard some mixed reviews, of course, but this was still a really good palette. It's been a little while since I've used it, so I'm excited to see how I like it now. If you're like me, I'm kind of curious about the new formula, but I almost don't want to get this one because, obviously that would be easier to compare, but I already have this one. Obviously I don't have those 2 matte shades, but I can pull those shades from any other palette that I have. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my Too Faced Natural Eyes palette for just the matte shades that I'll need. Just to let you know what else is on my face, if you are curious, I'm using the CoverGirl Vitalist Healthy Elixir foundation. I've really been enjoying this foundation. For my bronzer, I used the Anastasia bronzer, the new bronzer that they came out with. This one is in the shade Tawny. For my blush, I'm using this Burt's Bees blush in the shade Bare Peach. Pixie came out with some of these highlighters. This is in the shade, because they have 2 of these. This is Delicate Dew. I mostly have this one. And then just sort of at the top, I added a little bit of that one, but mostly it's this one. I primed my eyelids with MAC Painterly Paint Pot, and so I'm just gonna set it with the cream shade in here, which I usually do. You don't have to set your primer. I just find that for me, that helps a lot from, to keep it from creasing, and also because I have oily eyelids, but also just to sort of mattify the primer, like if you find that it gets kind of sticky. And oh, by the way, I'm using that shade Nudie, that one right there. It's like a perfect transition shade for my skin tone. I use that all the time. This is in my Project Pan, by the way. If you haven't seen my Project Pan, I'll link that so you can see it. And I always have to make sure and just kind of open my eyes as they would be normally, because I have slightly hooded eyes, so I want to make sure that you can still see the shade when I totally have my eyes open, because you can see it sort of folds over like that. If you have hooded eyes, that's a good tip, because if you're doing this and you're blending, like, oh, you'll see it, but then as soon as you kind of open your eyes the way that you would normally look, you won't really be able to see it. I'm going to keep it a little more neutral for this one, but I may pull in a little bit of this green. I'm not really sure. I didn't plan this really. This one right here. I'm going to take that and put it all over my lid. So you can see that's really pretty. I didn't, get that wet. I didn't put down a base of any kind. A really pretty shade. These are good quality. So I am very curious about the new ones. I might, pick up one of the other ones that they have, because as much as I'm curious about comparing these to, the new Comfort Zone to this one, it just doesn't really make sense for me to have both, and I have still plenty of product in this one. Definitely check out some reviews on here on YouTube, because there are certainly plenty. And we may go in and spritz our brush just a little bit, but you almost don't need to, especially if you're trying to keep this a little more natural looking. I'm going to take this shade that says Crease, and I'm just going to kind of, let's see, I'm going to put that here See, very, very pigmented shadows. Honestly, they're nice. Wet n Wild has some good stuff. And these are still very inexpensive. I think the new ones are still like $5 or something, which is really good. I can just put that there a little bit and then I can blend it out with my fluffy brush. I will take this darker definer shade. I'm gonna put that really in the outer corner. And you know, there isn't really something that's like super, super dark. This is as dark as it gets, but we'll see how much this packs a punch. So that's pretty dark. Pretty good. Very pigmented shades. I do need to be a little bit careful and tap off the excess here, which, you know, as I've shown, I mean, there are, you know, more expensive palettes that do the same thing, and that doesn't bother me. So, if, you know, if that bothers you, you won't like these, but I don't know, that really doesn't bother me. You wouldn't know that this is drugstore, I don't think. You know, you're not getting anything flashy with the packaging. You know, the newer one looks nicer for sure. You know, it's not anything fancy looking. And I admit packaging gets me sometimes, but as far as actual product goes, they're nice. You know, they may not last as long as, you know, more expensive shadows, but, you know, you may not care about that either. You know, I don't know about you, but I very often do my makeup halfway through the day because that's when my daughter naps, and so then that's when I'm filming or getting ready for the evening. You know, unless I get lucky and I have a little extra time first thing in the morning, I usually will just kind of pop a little bit of a corrector underneath my eyes, and then I'll just, you know, be barefaced for the first part of the day, and that's fine for me. I don't always need shadows to last like all day, but you might, you know, it just kind of depends on what you need. I'm gonna take a little more of that crease shade just to sort of blend those edges. And same thing, we'll go back with that eyelid shade, the first shade that we used from this palette. Maybe spritz our brush just a little bit with some MAC Fix Plus, as I would normally do. See how much intensity we can get out of the shade. Wow, okay, see? No need to spend $1 million on eyeshadows. Not unless you're really, you know, a makeup addict, a makeup lover, a makeup collector, whatever. You can do pretty much the same things. It's nothing groundbreaking as far as eye looks go, but it's gonna look really pretty. And by the way, I'm sorry, I've noticed in my editing that I think it's the ferrule that kind of like reflects the light or something, and it kind of like makes a starry effect or something in my videos, so I'm sorry about that. I don't really think that there's anything I can do about it. So I'm gonna take that brow bone shade. Let's see how shimmery that one is. I'm putting a lot on my brush, by the way. Yeah, so you can build it up. Not bad. Maybe if I get it wet again. Yeah, that's better. There we go. So I'm gonna add a little bit of liner. Liner was a struggle. I am trying out a new drugstore liner that everyone talks about how much they love. This just goes to show you, you never know, but my God. So excuse my liner. I had to like mess with it a little bit and my hands are all dirty from liner. Let's do the lower lash line. So I think I'm gonna add some green. I'm gonna take my Trish McAvoy eyeshadow stick in Smoky Emerald, and I'm gonna put that on my waterline. So I'm gonna take a little bit, I'm gonna mix these two shades, but then I'm gonna take that towards the inner part to brighten it up a little bit. Not bad. And this isn't gonna show up like crazy, which is good. It's just sort of a little pop of color. So I'm just gonna do my lashes and add a lip color, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that's the finished look for the first look that I'm doing with the Comfort Zone palette. I just used Maybelline Lash Sensational on my top lashes and my MAC Giga Black lash on my bottom lashes. And on my lips, I have ColourPop Frida. The gloss is Dose of Colors Bellini. It's their old gloss formula. So if you want to see the other look, then just keep watching. So we're gonna get started on a different look with the same Comfort Zone palette. This is the following day. I'm going to go ahead and still use the same palette that I used as sort of my matte shade, since again, this doesn't have any of those. I already set my entire lid with that cream shade. And I am going to take the same transition shade and just put that all through the crease. So I'm gonna focus on some of these darker shades because I'm gonna make this a little more of like a nighttime appropriate, or, you know, if this is daytime appropriate for you, well, who cares? I mean, it's daytime here and I'm putting this on. I'm definitely going to make this shade here the star of the show. This is a really gorgeous shade. I'm not totally sure what I'm gonna do, but I know that I wanna use that one. And I will use some of this as well, I'm sure, but I don't know. We'll just kind of see how it goes. I'm gonna start off first without wetting my brush, and then we'll probably go in and wet it, but I just wanna kind of show you what kind of pigment it has without, I didn't put on my glitter base, which, as I've said before, I do typically do that, so I don't fault a shade for needing that, but I don't need this to last all day long. So I would say, you know, it depends on you, but I prefer to typically use a glitter base with shimmers just because I feel like it helps them last longer. It helps them from transferring a little bit for me since I have slightly hooded eyes. So you do what works for you. But let's just see here. Yeah, look how pretty that is, huh? Isn't that gorgeous? I am going to wet this because it looks nice, but it will be a lot more intense when we add a little bit of moisture. And I'm telling you, I've had that Fix Plus for a long time. It is a very good investment. I know that, you know, they say that you can wet your brush with anything, but I find that that is just so easy. And I've had that bottom for such a long time. It really lasts a long time. And I use it all the time. Almost every single day that I do my makeup. Look how intense that is, right? Maybe some higher end shadows would go on a little more easily, a little more opaque, but I don't mind taking a little time to build this up. You know, I don't mind using a little extra product when it's such an inexpensive palette, you know? You definitely want to wet your brush with this one. I mean, unless you want it to be a little more natural. Lots of brands have shades like this, but it is a great shade to have, and it's kind of nice to have a, you know, a drugstore version of it. I'm just gonna go back into that crease shade that I used, and I'm actually gonna just deepen it up a little bit as well. With some of these here. I don't know, we'll just see. Yeah, make it a little bit of a darker crease there. And to blend out that shade. And that shade did a pretty good job of staying put without me having to build it back up after I blended over it. Part of that I think is wetting it, but it also did a really nice job of sticking around, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and take this shade right here. I'm gonna put that right in the outer corner just to deepen that up a tiny bit. This is an interesting shade. It's like, I don't know if it's completely black, but it has some shimmer in it. You can see that. So I don't know that it's totally black, but that does seem pretty pigmented. Oof. Yeah, that's pretty pigmented. Just putting that on the outer corner just to deepen it up. And I'm just gonna take a little more of that shade just to kind of blend those two together. And we'll go back to our fluffy brush too. Gotta blend it into the lid, gotta blend it into the crease. Always lots of blending. If you don't like to blend, you might not love doing makeup. Just saying. And I'm not gonna add any additional product. I'm just gonna kind of blend that out there. I will say that shade sort of blended away a little bit. I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more, but I don't know that that really did a whole lot. Yeah, there it is, but just kind of blended away. I don't know really what happened there, but I still feel like that shade is kind of odd. It's very pigmented, but it doesn't really like do a whole lot on top of that other shade. I don't know. But I'm gonna take that shade and just put it on my lower lash line just a tiny, tiny bit. Not a lot, so you can see it. It's just weird how it doesn't really like do a whole lot when you've already put on that other shade. I'm going to take just Nudie here, just to sort of blend that out a little bit. And it kind of blends it in, but without it being too intense on the inner part of the eye. You don't have to make it that dark on the lower lash line. I just think that when you're doing a smoky kind of eye like this, it balances it out a little bit more when you add it to the bottom. So you can do a little less if you wanted to, but I think it really does need that bottom lash line to be smoked out a little bit. I'm going to take the shade that they call Brow Bone, and I'm gonna put that on my inner corner. I don't know if this is gonna be bright enough, so we might have to add something else on top, but let's just see. Oh, okay, that's not bad actually. I think I'm just gonna wet that a tiny bit just to make it a little brighter. Yeah, that does help actually. I think we had to do that with the other Brow Bone shade. So I think I'm just gonna do a very thin line. Hopefully it ends up that way. You know how that can go sometimes. Just across the lash line, just to define it a little bit, but not doing a wing or anything like that. Okay, I'm just gonna put some black in my tight line and waterline. I'm using this Lottie London one. I'm going to do my lashes and my lips, and I will be right back. All right, so that is the completed look. I hope that you enjoyed this one. You can definitely do something natural with this palette as I did the first one, and then you can do a much smokier look with this look that I have here. There are lots of good options. Of course, you know, again, if you only have the original, you will have to pull in some other shade because you don't have anything matte in here, but they are really nice quality. If you're going out, you know, and looking for this palette, you know, you can get the new one, and it does have those transition shades in there, so that's really good. But I think this is a great palette. It's good to kind of pull out your older palettes and give them a shot. I'm going to continue to do this series with other palettes, so if you have an idea of a palette you'd like to see next, then definitely leave me a comment down below. I have a bunch of palettes I want to try out with this. If you want to quickly know what else is on my face, I used my IT Cosmetics CC Cream as my foundation. I have NARS Laguna bronzer on as my bronzer. As a pretty natural blush, I used Clinique Nude Pop because I didn't want it to take anything away from the eye look. I used my Anastasia Nicole Guerriero Glow Kit. I mixed some of these shades for my highlight. This is definitely a much more like glittery, fancy highlight, so that's why I used that. And on my lips is this Too Faced Melted Lipstick, Melted Nude. Please give this video a big thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to my channel already, please hit the subscribe button and stick around. I would so appreciate that, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye.